Hey guys, I'm Mo today. In today's video, we talk about the Highlanders versus the Blues in round 8 of Super Rugby Aotearoa. So this will be a very interesting game, obviously, with both sides wanting to win. You know, it's getting to crunch time within the competition. And yeah, the Highlanders obviously did lose last week against the Chiefs in extra time, so that was a heartbreaking loss for them. You know, that was, a tough one to swallow, really, for them. And that was at home, so yeah, it hurts even more, really. And yeah, with the Blues, obviously, they're coming back from a bye week, so yeah, they will have a bit of, you could say, more energy, you could say, going into this game, but more or less they'll want to continue their winning form, obviously after beating the Hurricanes, I believe, before their bye week. So both sides obviously will want to win, and obviously the Blues will want to keep up pressure, keep that pressure on the Crusaders, because they are putting the Chiefs away, but also, they're just creeping, slowly towards them, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, here are the lineups, obviously, for both sides. I'll run them by with you guys, tell you what I think about them, and yeah, I'll give my prediction right afterwards. So obviously with the Highlanders, they do have the likes of Aidan Johnstone and Takalahi as their two sets of props, and I probably think this is their best two props they can go with. Have a lot of Super Rugby experience with both of them in that sense, and they've done pretty well, I'd say, so far within this competition. Takalahi obviously is replacing Josh Honig from last week's game, and to be honest, I thought Josh Honig was pretty good, I'd say, throughout last week, but more or less, Takalahi, he is your number one prop, I'd say, for the Highlanders, so it's good to see him back in that squad. And obviously they'll be facing the likes of Carl Tungafe as well as Ofa Tungafasi. So, to be frank, I think the Blues will win this every single time within that area, just because they have two, all black, caliber props. So yeah, I'll probably edge towards the Blues from that prop section. For the hooker, obviously, you do have the likes of Ash Dixon, who is one of the co-captains for the Highlanders within this game, but he'll be facing the likes of Tulai for the Blues, who he has been. I'll say he's been steadily progressing throughout this competition. I'll say for the Blues, but I wouldn't say he's really a top hooker yet. But more or less, I think Ash Dixon, I'd say, would win this purely on the basis of where he just has more Super Rugby experience. And basing him off last year, he was brilliant. This year, he hasn't been on his best form, to be perfectly frank. But more or less, I would still choose him over Tolai at this position. But anyway, moving on to the locks. So the locks is a very interesting one, obviously, with both sides. You do have the likes of Bryn Evans as well as Josh Dixon, who I do believe is replacing Perry Parkinson from last week. So I kind of like that combination because obviously, you have Bryn Evans obviously with a ton of experience, and then Josh Dixon, who's obviously, you could say, he's kind of maintained his status, I could say, within Super Rugby. He has a lot of experience for sure, and more or less I think that's a good combination there. But they will be facing the likes of Sam Derry as well as Gerald Tuwade. So it'll be very interesting to see who actually wins that one. The thing is that the Blues are still without Patrick Tubeloto, so for that reason I'm going to edge it towards the Highlanders. I just think they have a lot more experience within that section, and to be frank, I think they'll probably win that. That'll be a key battle, you could say, within this game for the Highlanders to win. But anyway, moving on to the loose forwards. So the loose forwards is a very interesting one because I say both set of loose forwards for both teams are very good. With the likes of the Highlanders, you do have the likes of Shannon Frizzell, you have Billy Harmon, who's obviously back within the side, and then you have the likes of Kazuki Himeno, who is brilliant, by the way. I absolutely love him, but he's been good so far. Say particularly within that Crusaders game. I'd say he kind of lost his edge, I'd say, within last week's game against the Chiefs, but more or less he still did pretty well. But yeah, they'll be facing the likes of Tom Robinson, who is the captain of the side, and he will be captaining the side once again, which is good to see. I thought he did pretty well within that game against the Highlanders, so good to see that he's keeping that leadership role within the group, and obviously he can probably advance with that. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, he'll be partnering with the likes of Doto Papali as well as Hoskins Tutu. So yeah, it's a very good loose forward pack there for the Blues. I think if I had to be without being biased here, obviously because I'm a Blues fan, but I'd probably say the Blues have the best loose forward pack just due to the amount of depth they have within that selection. They also have the likes of Blake Gibson to choose from, Kira Ione if they had to. They could have gone with who else? They could have selected Dylan Hunt, but obviously he's injured at the moment. But yeah, they have a load of good players from that position. And yeah, for that reason, I'm going to edge it towards the Blues. But yeah, Shannon Frizzell has been pretty good so far, so I wouldn't count him off within this game for sure. But anyway, moving on to the backs. So the backs is a very interesting one, obviously, with both sides. You do have the 9-10 combination for the Highlanders, which is obviously Aaron Smith, who is one of the co-captains. The other co-captain, then he'll be partnering up with Mitch Hunt, who has been brilliant so far, I'd say, throughout this competition. He's definitely made a name for himself, you could say. He's probably put his name in the pile for the All Black call-up. We'll have to wait and see. Because he was outstanding against the Crusaders, but more or less, I'd say he dropped in form. I'd say last week. His kicking, to be perfectly frank, was not the best. To levels above from the previous week before that. But yeah, well, hopefully he can improve on his kicking. That's probably the main area of his game he will definitely want to improve on within this week. But yeah, but the Highlanders will be facing the likes of, I believe, Jonathan Ruru, who is replacing Sam Nock, I believe, from last week's game, and he just brings a load of energy within the side, which is what I truly believe the Blues need within this game particularly, because the Highlanders are really, they have a load of energy. And yeah, more or less, his partner in crime will obviously be Aotearoa, who has done pretty well, I'd say, throughout the campaign so far for the Blues. So yeah, and he's also another name who's another player who's actually putting his name up for that All Black call up. And surprisingly, both of them are in the 10 position. So it's interesting to see who would actually be selected. But more or less, I mean, both players have been brilliant. This is actually a tough one because I'd say both sets are actually pretty good. But I'm going to edge it towards the Highlanders purely because they have more. Aaron Smith brings a lot more experience than Jonathan Ruru, and Mitch Hunt and Aotearoa, I'd say, are very similar players. They're at the same, I'd say, level of their career at the moment, if I have to be perfectly frank. But anyway, moving on to the centres. The centres is a very interesting one, obviously, for both sides. You do have the likes of, I believe, Scott Gregory as well as Tonkinson for the Highlanders, which is a pretty odd combination, you could say. Obviously, with Scott Gregory, filling in, going into that role at 12. But he has, to be perfectly honest, he has done pretty well there, so I'm not going to give him too much of a headache in that position. But he is one of those players who, in my opinion, you can't rely on fully, but at the same time, he has moments where I think he tackled one player brilliantly. And it was just like, it was a sensational tackle. So yeah, we're looking him credit within that area. Yeah, but more or less, they will be facing the likes of TJ Thani as well as Rico Iani, and yeah, I mean that combination, just in my opinion, it's much better. I'd say the different style. Two players have is completely different. That kind of works together, and yeah, I just think they have a lot more chemistry together. So for that reason, I'm gonna definitely go with the Blues with that TJ Thani and Rico. And don't get me wrong, Rico will definitely be a speedster within this game. So I definitely say he's the one-to-watch player for the Blues in this game for sure. But anyway, moving on to the wingers. The wingers is a very interesting one, obviously, with the Highlanders. You do have the likes of Nureki as well as Punavai. So it's a pretty good combination there. I mean, Nureki, he's been one of those players who, he made a name for himself within the opening rounds, obviously, with that hat trick against the Chiefs. But since then, he has been pretty quiet, to be honest. And obviously, he's missed he's been very quiet, to be frank. But Punavai, on the other hand, he's an upcoming player. He's done pretty well, I'd say, so far with the Highlanders. Hopefully he can just continue his, improvement, you can say, throughout that, within the team. But more or less, should be interesting how he goes. But yeah, with the Blues, obviously, you do have the likes of Caleb Clark at the 11th spot, and then Mark Talea. And I just love that combination more. It's more or less, there's a lot more balance, I'd say, within that combination. With Caleb Clark being more of like an enforced, it's real, you could say a battering ram in the sense, but very quick as well. But then Mark Talea being more of a speedster, and where he's very clinical with his try-scoring ability, so I just like that combination more, to be frank. But yeah, I'd say the Blues win that position for sure. But anyway, moving on to the last position, obviously, with that 15th spot, and yeah, it's going to be a very interesting battle, I'd say, probably the key battle within the game, in my opinion, with Josh Roney for the Highlanders, and then Stephen Perifetto for the Blues. To be perfectly frank, I would have said Stephen Perifetto would be ahead of Josh Roney at this point in time, just because Josh Roney hasn't played as many games as him. But since Josh Roney has been introduced within all these Highlanders games, he's made more of an impact, in my opinion, than what Stephen Perifetto has for the Blues. So for that reason, I'm going to choose Josh Roney. He actually had a pretty good game, I'd say, last week against the Chiefs as well. So hopefully he can just continue his progress. Yeah, that's kind of it with both sides, really. If I'm going to give my prediction, or just who I actually think will win, it's going to be. To be honest, I think this will be a lot closer than last week's one, and that's actually, it can't be as close because obviously that was a draw extra time. But I do believe this will be decided within, I'd say, 3 points. See, I want to say the Highlanders, but I just think the Blues are too strong. So for that reason, I'm going to edge it towards the Blues, and I'll say they won this game by 26 points to 23. Yeah, 26 points to 23 is my final prediction for the game. But anyway, just hope you guys have a good day. Definitely like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.